Brent Hahn, you are an arrow archery elk hunting broadhead nerd, and I value this last hour with you. Thank you so much for coming on today. Two things, Brent.
Yeah.
I want to talk about. First one, and you've kind of hinted at this, and so I gotta like spell it out for the listeners. If you hunt solo, you might have more success. Doesn't guarantee it, but I certainly stand behind that. Number two, if you vocalize and you're solo, you may have shot opportunities that are few and far between, and the ones that do materialize may not be ideal, and your current setup may be setting you up for heartbreak that both Dan and Brent have experienced. So if you want to ensure penetration and not take away that quartering two shot on an elk, or I hate to say it, but frontal or whatever, or quartering away, best practices for the Valkyrie system. Let's distill it down. You've already said a 4 mil arrow makes a lot of sense to me, not only fighting wind drift, but the lighter GPI, the stiffness. And then you have the pin system, which is undeniable with the 4 mil. And then you have that 3-to-1 ratio. Let's just distill your best practices and go over all the offerings that you have.
Okay. So first of all, when guys think of a 200 grain or 180 grain broadhead, the reason why we do the light grain sprint shaft, because there's lighter ones out there, but we have to maintain structural integrity. We're not shooting targets, because I can go in it, but anyway, this to distill it down and not tell you all the whys is that you need a moderately heavy wall. You need the center pin system because this has the footing. I'll just show it to you, or the people can see this, right? So this shaft goes down and is flush inside. So you have a footing that goes clear back to right there, okay? Sleeve covers the outside of the shaft so you have no mushrooming. It goes over about 3/4 of an inch. So now you have the sleeves, this glues on permanent. It's like an outsert, glues right on. Broadhead, and there's rubber bushings that we have on the ones you get. There's none on this one because this one's not even sharpened yet. But those rubber bushings slide down inside. The whole shaft is pretty much flush on the inside. Then this screws on. Everything we have is screw on. That locks in with the fine thread because we don't want the heads rattling loose. And also where the back of that pin is right here, there's the first thing that the rubber bushings are touching the shaft. So if you do get a deflection, a heavy impact, oblique impact, it's going to try to snap your head right behind the insert, like happens on all the outserts. Doesn't matter which ones you use. There's a pin inside here that goes clear back to right here. The first thing that hits that shaft is the rubber bushings. They cushion that shock. And that cushioning that shock kind of transfers the energy back here. And even at 3D shoots and stuff, when you do hit rocks or glancing blows off of pipes and stuff, most of the time the shaft breaks back in the middle. The front end is still intact and straight. And so because we want to design zero impact failure on heavy bones. So this bomb-proof pretty much. And with the rubber bushings in here and the fine threads, your heads throughout, if you're hunting, especially like spot and stalk mule deer, this has happened to me. They get up, they move. 8 hours later, you've been close, had your arrow out of your quiver about freaking 5 times. Well, then if you're using standard threads and you don't have Loctite or something on it, or even if you do, all of a sudden your head starts coming loose. And then anyway, after 8 hours, I missed an easy shot by missing them with a rattling broadhead.
When guys go to your website, you can order test kits. You can order just the broadheads. You can order the sitter pin sleeve and glue. Kind of break down your website and how to do the best shopping experience for my crowd, which is a bunch of ABT, always be tinkering, trying to get the most perfect setup just like you.
This setup, if for all the tinkers out there, because I talk to them all the time because they're always online looking around. They don't see it somewhere. I'm like, so I was a tinkerer for decades. The reason why I decided to come out with this was because I got tired of tinkering with marginal products. like always using other people's stuff, gluing or doing the mini all threads, grinding one collar off of an insert, screwing it onto the other insert so I get a long insert. And then that was the day when I was doing the gold tip inserts. That first one to get it all squared and lined up took me like a half an hour. And I had 11 more to do. And I'm like, I can't. I can't keep doing this. And so that's when I designed it. Anyway, I started designing. But after all your tinkering and testing, I tell guys all the time, if you're completely open and honest with your shooting, your penetration, the accuracy, this is where you end up. This is where you're going to end up. This lightweight, stiff shaft, low shaft drag, super bomb-proof front end, like the strongest in the industry, and one of the best, I don't know, if not the best broadheads. Because if I say guys all the time, if there was a better one, we make it. If there was a better arrow system, I would make it. This is what I take in the woods because I value it so much that I want the best possible arrow in the widest variety of circumstances for accuracy and lethality. If I get it close, I want to get it. So, and I want to be able to get my arrow there, even if there's those little huckleberry branches like I talked about that I can't see. If I hit those, I still get them. So my arrow doesn't go 3 feet off. And that's, I mean, everybody, I talk to everybody, shows all the time to people, hit them in the shoulder, even on deer. Arrow doesn't go in. I'm like, yeah, here you go. This fixes that. Or, yeah, I hit this. I didn't see this branch and I hit it. It was a little tiny twig branch. My arrow completely changed directions. With this arrow system, with the weight forward, which is an important component of keeping that arrow going straight, these might get bumped off a little bit, but the head keeps it driving towards the target. And that's why we have the test kits, because that's why I wanted you guys to shoot it first, so you can see it firsthand before we talked about it, because even the flight of the arrow looks different in flight. Even if you're just shooting in like either calm or a light wind, it's almost like you can see the head kind of driving towards the bullseye. I used to love standing behind the guys when they come over 70, 80 yards. You got a slight crosswind, and that arrow would be flagging sideways, waving a little bit, right in there. And the penetration is phenomenal. But so that's what you get with Valkyrie, and you can buy the test kit. And you 30 days trial, you have to pay up front $49.95 plus shipping. Shoot the stuff for 30 days, because most guys have probably never even shot a 200 grain head or even thought about it. And one of the first things we used to do so guys can see for themselves, because a lot of guys, when I first tell them about it, they're like, oh yeah, whatever. So the first thing they could do when the guys would come over, we take their 100 grain head off their arrow, screw a 200 grain head on their setup, go out to 40 yards, and I tell them, put the pin on the bullseye. And every single guy would almost miss the target high. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, you didn't put your pin on the bullseye. Well, no, I was putting it like kind of over the target a little bit because I didn't want to miss, I didn't want to wreck my arrow. And one of the things, I wish I had your video capability, because we should have videoed that, because we did that with everybody. Just put that on there just to give them confidence. Like, look, these arrows, we're adding 100 grains to your arrow, and it's only dropping like 2 inches off your other one at 40. They're like, and everybody's like, no way. Yeah, that's why I had to do it, so you could see it and have confidence in it. So, because then even with the 200 grain head or whatever, we use a lot of 180s and 200s, probably our most popular. But the overall arrow weights are not extreme; they're moderate compared. They're anywhere from, depends on your draw length and stuff. But most of our setups, 80% of our arrow setups for guys shooting 70 pounds, depending on your draw length, is like 475 to 525. And then 525, you can go up to almost 80 pounds and still hit the FOC threshold. You have the strength threshold. And then the other thing we try to maintain is a feet per second of 270 or higher. And that we found through trial and error also. So as we bring guys, we walk them back, shooting far, keep adding head weight, all above the 18% FOC threshold. But we keep, because the more you can shoot, the higher the FOC, the better, if you can still maintain accuracy and stuff. But there's kind of a balance in there, because you want to, especially out here, you need range. You have to be able to shoot far, and but the more FOC you can get, the better. And so that's why we have the test kit with the 3 different head weights, and you walk it back. And so I'm getting back to the arrow drop and the speed. So in the first couple months, we never brought out the chronograph. We just walk it back until you all of a sudden you start falling off the table after 50. Then we back it up to the next lightest head where you had a nice smooth arc out to 70. And then after a couple months, I'm like, yeah, all right. And everyone was the same. Like, that's manageable. That's not bad. And I'm like, yes, that's good speed. And then we brought out the chrono, and it's freaking right at 270. And so that's where we hit. But we also incorporate lower profile. We four fletch with 4 low profile. We use the AE Pro Max and the heat vane because this drag back here can create a lot of friction. Like blazer vanes, when you shoot the same stuff with blazer vanes, 45 or 50 yards, they start throwing on the brakes. And so we try to, but you still need that control. And that's where the 4 lows come in. So you can still control the fixed blades, but have less drag down range. So that's one of the things when we built this, we adhered to like the 12 factors of the ultimate hunting arrow from Ashby, except for we modernized it by lowering the heavy bone breach threshold. And that starts with how, when we designed the tip all the way, like the FOC, the structural integrity, there's no bending or breaking up here up front, no breaking, no bending in here. And then we have the weight forward pulling through, 0 shaft friction practically. That's, most times if you hit an animal squared up, the arrow just goes through them like paper, even if you go through ribs. And then, low drag, so that even though your arrow can be heavier, low drag in the back end, it will still stay up longer, and your heavier arrow won't slow down as fast at extended ranges. So it's funny. So when we take guys, they'll shoot their arrow, they've got their gold tip hunter, blazer vanes, 100 grain tip, weighs like 50 grains lighter. They'll be way flatter out to about 45 or 50. Then all of a sudden their arrow starts dropping, and then this one starts not dropping. So it's coming out slower, but yeah, it's only about a 10-yard. Like, they just take their next 10-yard pin, and they can work almost the same trajectory until you get further. And then I have to use a faster tape from 50 plus, slower tape under 50, faster tape over 50, because it just doesn't have the friction to slow it down as much as the standard arrow. That's a lot to take in.
Well, here's where I want to finish, Brent. And honestly, I think you're a wealth of knowledge, and I think this listen is a good one. And I think there's newer archers that may want to re-listen come back to this episode once you've gone down the rabbit holes, because you will get sucked into rabbit holes, and you'll see that Brent is speaking in truth. I can vouch for you as a seasoned elk hunter and a gold star tinkerer. You're not wrong. You're really talking about some amazing concepts. But I want to finish with this, Brent. How the hell do you sharpen your broadheads? What's the best practices?
The best is the sharpening wheel kit, which we're out of right now. So on this is that I wanted to factor that in too, because I hate, even on the single bevel 2 blades or the double bevel, pain in the butt. Montecs are pretty easy because you just do 2 blades at once on the stone, just flat stone. You can do that, and you can get them pretty sharp. But with these, and the Rockwell on our broadheads is so strong that, because there's so many things I could talk about, but I just wanted this blade, after it cuts through hair and hide, to still be sharp. And anything from the mid 50s and under in Rockwell is not sharp by the time it gets to the vitals. So, and then we had them up 54, 56 with the Blood Eagles. But even though we go through heavy bone and out the other side, they weren't sharp anymore. So we make everything out of S7, 60 to 61 Rockwell. So it stays sharp all the way through. And most of the time, even if you break shoulders and stuff, they're still shaving hairs. So, and that's what I wanted one to stay sharp all the way through. But sharpening, that's another factor I wanted. I hate sharpening. I'm not good at it. And so these are, with the sharpening wheel kits we built, it's like a 2-inch wide wheel. And we have videos online. Even our customers have made videos on YouTube, just like, dude, this is so easy. But the biggest mistake guys make with broadheads, and I used to do it all the time, you have to get the micro burr. You have to get the burr. It has to catch on your nail. If it's sliding on your nail, you got no burr. It's going to catch on your nail one way or the other. And it's not a big old hanging curvy burr. It's just a tiny one. Once you get that off the grit wheel, then you buff it out or strop it or whatever. But we use the buffing wheel with that to take that burr off and then hand hone that wedge. I mean, it's just nasty. You can get them nasty sharp. And it's super easy. Anyone can do it. I had my good buddy who's a doctor. but very not hands-on. And I'm like, here, sharpen this on that wheel. He's like, why do you want me to do it? I'm like, because if you can do it, anybody can do it. And he's like, and so he got it and did it. So,
Oh, that's good.
super, yeah, I want it super easy. We're out of those wheel kits, but also another way to do it. And I had this before even Valkyrie, because and I don't know a lot of guys but I think about everything all the time. Back even when I was using the two blades, I had those 4x36 inch benchtop belt sanders, and I get custom belts from like 120, 220, 400, 600, 800, just because I wanted to have a sharp edge. And so even on the Montex, I'd use like 800 or 1,000 to get that thing, that shiny sharp. You don't wanted it nasty sharp. And so, and you can use those belt sanders. You can use, because you need this concave part you have to use on the spindle. So this will come around. So I take this on the spindle and then keep that on top. And then just because our tip is drop pointed for strength, then you just roll it up a little bit. And you just, this is always coming here. And that'll just sharpen in here with that stuff coming around. Two blades at once, super easy. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to all of them because you have to keep that point concentric. So, but two blades at once, the 4x36 belt sander we use them here. Like when guys send in broadheads they've abused or shot targets for all year, they want them resharpened. We use those just with the 120, 220, and 400 grit, then the buffing wheel. Mm-hmm. We actually have 3 set up in a row. Then we can get that edge back with that 120, make sure it's catching on the nail. Then go to the 220, take all the scratch marks out. The 400 gets it a little smoother. And then we buff it on the wheel with the white polishing compound, and they're back to nasty. I mean, from dull, and that takes a couple minutes. With the belt sander that you can get anywhere. The only thing you can't get is the 120 and 220. I recommend ceramic grit, which you can order from Amazon.
Yeah.
And then the 400, we use aluminum oxide.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, because they don't make because if you use the other stuff, it'll work for like 1 or 2 broadheads, but steel's so hard that you're going to go through belts like crazy.
Okay.
So, I mean, you could use it, but your belts will be done in a few broadheads. They'll be just butter knives. Your belts will be. I mean, they won't have any grit left to them. And even we use the rubber belt cleaner stuff too all the time, but the ceramics last a long time.
Parting advice for all my elk hunter listeners out there from a seasoned veteran, OG, or like yourself.
One of the most important things you can do is the arrow, and you start with the broadhead and work it back, because that is your only contact. You spend all that time and energy, like I have, and I do. I did the same thing in fishing. I mean, back when I was a hardcore steelhead guy, I always had. At first I didn't, but then I ended up getting the best line and the best hooks because, fishing in Oregon here is pretty rough on you. It's like almost like elk hunting. You bust your button for one. But if you lose that or for the dull hook or crappy line or something, it's not worth it. Same thing with your arrow and broadhead. That's the only place I would never skimp on elk hunting is your arrow setup, because that's your only connection. I mean, it all boils down to what that can do. Even if you do everything else right, if that fails, doesn't matter. So, and it's one of the cheapest things you can do for elk hunting, especially with the price of fuel and everything.
Wow. That's some wisdom right there, guys. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to the Valkyrie website. Maybe you need to check out the test kit. And if you guys need to reach out, that's all I did. I went to the website and reached out to Brent after meeting him in person, and they got back to me immediately. So remember, especially today, separation is in the preparation. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.